Welcome to this episode of the Connecting Faith to Life podcast. I'm Trey Rhodes, the Connections Pastor here at Englewood Baptist Church in North Charleston, South Carolina. In just a few moments, our lead pastor, Dr. Tommy will be joining the conversation as well. In our crazy and chaotic world, our hope is that these few minutes will help you stop and reflect on your relationship with Jesus as you learn to connect Christ-centered faith to your everyday life. And welcome to episode 243 of the Connecting Faith to Life podcast. Great to have you along. And as always, we encourage you to get the word out by social media, even by in person. You can invite somebody, call them on the phone. I know that's unusual, but you might want to call them on the phone. But at least talk about it in small group, because we have entire small groups that have conversations when they come together to talk about our podcast. So that's cool. Yeah,
People actually talk about us.
Yeah, so yeah. And mostly good. So that's actually a real positive. So anyway, get the word out, invite people to come be a part. Thank you for listening and appreciate you being faithful. Well, Pastor, we are doing something that I think is just so New Testament. It just overwhelms me at times as we help replant churches. And that has been an amazing thing to watch and happen. And so we have a special treat today.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm going to let you introduce him and take over from here and just kind of get that going.
We've got a good buddy of ours on the podcast today. Mark Hallock is joining us. Mark, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. So good. Great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Glad you're here.
Welcome.
So let me tell you about Mark. So if you're listening and you're part of our faith family, you know that, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now, we adopted Gethsemane Baptist Church, and really at that time did not have a clue what we were doing.
That's
right?
true.
And we still don't in a lot of ways, but as a staff, as a pastoral team, we began praying for God to give us an opportunity to adopt a church, because, I was real heavy on my heart. My background coming up is just, I grew up in struggling small churches, and I've pastored small struggling churches. That's how I started out. My first church I ever pastored was 25 people in Franklin, Louisiana, and it was struggling. Yeah, it was struggling. And so, I just really had a heart for that, and our team had a heart for that. A lot of our team came from smaller churches, and we wanted to be a blessing. And so we began praying about that, and God in His sovereignty and His grace allowed us to adopt Gethsemane. And we know the story. If you're part of our faith family, you know the story. God's just done an amazing work there. And then over time, as we were adopting and working with them, many of you in our church, you know the name Craig Tuck. He's our associational missionary here in Charleston. He works with our different Baptist churches to kind of help us collaborate for ministry. He started talking to me about this idea of a family of churches. And I'm like, Craig, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like, and he knew this guy named Mark Hallock.
Yeah.
And he invited me, it was a year and a half ago maybe, to go out to Denver, Colorado to meet Mark and to see what they're. I'm like, I ain't got time to go out to Denver. And so I didn't go that first time. I did not go. I wish now I would have, but I was just, but he kept persisting. You got to think about this family. And he started talking to me more about this family of churches and telling me about what Mark was doing out in Denver. And now here we are. I've had the opportunity to get to know Mark, been with him several times. Now he's actually come out to Charleston a few times. My first interaction with him,
wow, that's
I think
amazing.
it was about a year ago maybe. He came out to Charleston to do a little conference with us to talk to us about family of churches. But man, when I started to hear Mark and his vision and what they're doing in Denver, like my heart began to resonate with me. And so this is what's happening now. Like we are creating in the Charleston area a family of churches, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked about it this past Sunday morning in our worship service. On April 7th, Gethsemane Baptist Church will officially be a part of our family of churches. They will become Northwood Baptist Berkeley. They're going to share the same vision, same philosophy of ministry, same strategy, same name. Still an independent or autonomous church, but a part of our family. That we're going to collaborate together for the work of the gospel, like we've been doing, just a little bit more strategically. And the same thing's going to happen at Wando Woods. About a month or so, they're going to do the same thing. And so we're creating this family of churches where, if you're part of the Northwood family, you've got a bigger family than just the campus that's on Green Ridge Road. There are other churches in our area that are like-minded with us, doing the same things that we're doing, have their own pastor, right? autonomous, right? Yeah. It's not a campus of, it's not a satellite. We're not video piping, not those kinds of things. Yeah. It's its own church, just choosing to radically cooperate with us by sharing the same name, vision, values, all those kind of things for the sake of the gospel in the community. Mm-hmm. And we're hopeful, right, that that's going to keep on growing as the Lord allows. Not only that, we're hopeful that there will be some other healthy churches in our community.
Amen to that.
That do the same thing.
Yes.
Because, and Mark will tell us, and I'm going to ask him a few questions in a moment, like Denver is very different than Charleston. Mm-hmm. So in Charleston, there's lots and lots and lots of churches that are dying. It's just a fact, right? What would it look like if several churches in our area that are healthy and strong did the same thing that we're trying to do? Right? Over the next 5-10 years, very easily, there could be 30 or 40 churches that are turned around, right, for the sake of the gospel.
Yeah, that's what we're looking
because
for.
other healthy churches step in and help, right? So we'll see what God does. It's a big vision, but we're trusting God to do great things. He already is doing great things, and God has done a really great thing in Denver, Colorado, which is very different than Charleston, South Carolina. So Mark, again, welcome. Really glad you're here. Hey, man, just thinking about it, you've been to Charleston now, I don't know how many times, 4 or 5 times, I guess.
Man, several times. Yeah.
It's always a blessing to have you. So when you compare Charleston to Denver, what do you see as the differences? I mean, obviously cold and hot, but other than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little cooler in Denver. No, honestly, I think like in a lot of ways there are similarities, but this is, again, being out west, and so we do a lot of our work, obviously, out west and in the north. In some ways, we're a bit more secularized at this point than what I see in the South. And just what I mean is, in Charleston, when I go to Charleston or Greenville, and I know Greenville and Charleston are very different, but there's still this kind of cultural Christianity that's still very prevalent. In other words, most people you meet, I'm guessing, would still say, even if they're not a regular churchgoer or, a real committed Christian, they probably say, I'm a Christian, it's kind of what it is, or we've got a church we're sort of part of. Denver's is past that now. So it's like we're living in a place where, my neighbors literally, they're not Christians. They know they're not Christians, and they're not, and they're not looked down on to say that they're not Christians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think in certain parts of the South, it's still respected that you're a Christian. You're part of a church. It's kind of expected. I would say in Denver, it's almost the opposite. You're almost looked at like you're a Christian. You're one of those people. Yeah. And so all that to say, the missional climate, I think, is a bit different here. And which brings, I think, both opportunities and dangers. You and I have talked about this. Is one of the challenges you guys have is if everybody sort of thinks they're a Christian, then who's not a Christian? You know what I mean?
Right. So, it's a big deal.
It's like you got to help people see they're not saved before they can be saved.
That's right.
Whereas for us, it's like people, they already know they're not saved. And so
we're not thinking about it. Yeah, not even thinking about it.
Yeah. We just don't have a lot of lukewarm Christianity here. It's just like, it doesn't do anything for you to be a Christian. So the great thing there from an evangelistic perspective is when we see people converted, I mean, they're hardcore conversions.
It's a real deal, yeah.
The real deal. And so, again, I'm generalizing here, but I think those are some of the different challenges you guys have and than we have. And both there's positive and negative, I think, with both, but we're definitely in the mission field out here. There's no question about it. And yet this is where the Lord has placed us, you know, and we love it. We're excited to be here and to do the Lord's work here.
So talk to us about this family of churches, how that birthed. You've been at Calvary, Englewood for about 15 years, right?
Yeah. Yep. So 2009 is when my wife and I, we felt called to go to Calvary. Here's a little backstory. So I'd been a youth pastor for 13 years at 2 different churches, loved youth ministry, but was beginning to sense a couple things. One, the longer in youth ministry, you begin to see, sadly, at least in a traditional youth ministry model, how kids are one to the youth group, but they're not one to the church.
That's right.
And so a lot of times kids will graduate from youth group and they graduate from the church. And I grew discouraged with that and going, man, what are we doing here? Like the youth group's important, but if we're not helping young people become full-blown members of a church and actively involved in the church, how are we passing this on to the next generation? Yeah. So part of my conviction was, man, what would it look like to lead a church that really values intergenerational ministry and discipleship holistically. That was one thing. The second thing was this. In Denver in 2009, Denver's a pretty cool spot to plant churches. There's no doubt about it. You got the mountains.
Yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful. You got skiing. I mean, it's a cool place to live. So a lot of church planters love to come, especially from the South, up here. The problem is they don't stick around long. The average church plant in Denver lasts 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so just over and over, you see churches give a bunch of money and they try to plant big like you do in the South, and it just doesn't take here.
Yeah.
People they're not really impressed with the big show. It's slower, steady, just real relational ministry. And so I was seeing all these churches being planted, many of them failing, and going, man, there's got to be a better way to plant churches. And my thought was, at the heart of it is cooperation, and that's what we're going to be talking about. It's just radical cooperation.
Yeah,
these guys come in and parachute in. They don't have the long haul support that you need, and they get discouraged and they leave. And I get it. And we're like, there's got to be a different way. And then the other thing I would say that God was doing in my heart was we were seeing the church, more and more churches dying in key neighborhoods in our city. And just recognizing, look, man, in Denver, it's so expensive to live in Denver. Churches cannot afford literally to build new churches.
That's right.
I mean, it's just not happening. If you happen to be a really large, wealthy church, which there aren't a lot of them out here, you're typically going to the suburbs, right? And we're saying, man, what about these neighborhoods all throughout our city filled with people who don't know Jesus? And there's these great buildings that were built, in the 50s and 60s primarily, that are being sold and ripped down and becoming apartment buildings. And that was like, man, we've got to do something with that, And so anyway, all that to say, it led us to Calvary Englewood. Calvary Englewood was this little dying church, about 30 people in Englewood, Colorado, which is kind of it's the old school suburb. It was a suburb in the 50s. Like Calvary was kind of like the Baptist church, Southern Baptist church in the 50s. But over time, as the city grew and the suburbs moved further south, east, west, Englewood became kind of at the heart of what we call the donut of Denver, which is now very ethnically diverse, economically diverse. It's not a cool area. Most people are in Englewood to get through Englewood, to either go to the city to watch the Nuggets, or work downtown, or go out in the suburbs. And we have churches like that all over the place in Denver, in that area. And so we felt like, man, who's going to go, serve churches like this? And the potential is unbelievable because there's so many lost people within a short amount of distance. So 2009, long story short, the Lord called us to go to Calvary and to help lead this church. And honestly, it's like what you said, man. It's not like I knew what I was doing. I'm going, look, I want to preach the word faithfully. Yeah. I'm going to pray like crazy because I know if God doesn't show up, this is not going to turn around. I'm going to love these people the best I can and help them begin to live on mission in Englewood.
That's good.
And that was literally the four things. And it's like, Lord, help us if we can just begin tackling these. And by God's grace, man, he took this little group of 30 kind of discouraged people, but they were humble, and that's always key, right? When we're talking about churches, what are you looking for in a church that can actually turn around? Humility is always number one. If there's not a humility that says, man, this is the Lord's church, it's not my church.
Amen.
Then if that attitude isn't there, there's very little hope for a church like that.
That's right.
And so they've got to be broken. They've got to be humbled and say, man, God, my life is short. This is your church, and we're going to do whatever it takes. Well, anyway, that was the posture of the people at Calvary. Praise God. And so slowly, man, the Lord began to bring this dying church back to life and vibrancy. And so over the next 3 years, from 2009 to 2012, I usually just refer to those as kind of the years that God was getting us healthy again.
Yeah.
And we, never saw explosive growth of any kind. I always get really nervous, to be honest, when I see a church exploding growth.
That's right.
Usually based on a personality or something else. But God was slowly growing this little church back to health and vibrancy. Well, by 2012, we'd reached a point where we were really maxing out our building. Because again, it's not a huge church building.
Yeah.
As you know, you've been there.
Yeah.
You've been there. It's not a huge church building. And so, we had a decision to make. And, we really want to be driven by our convictions and not pragmatism. And our convictions are, man, we want to shepherd God's people really well. We want to make disciples. We don't just want to be a huge church where people don't know each other, pastors don't know the people, these kinds of things. And so where a lot of just kind of, I think typical evangelical thinking is, well, just sell the building and go build a bigger building in the suburbs, and you can keep growing. Our conviction was, no, the Lord has us right here in this neighborhood to be a lighthouse for these people in this community for the long haul. And so what that meant was, okay, well, then we've got to get serious about multiplication. Yeah. We've got to get serious about sending people aggressively out to plant new churches and, Lord willing, to replant dying churches. That was our dream, And so in 2012, we literally spent a year with key leaders, our pastor elders and others, having late night conversations about, okay, if we're going to do this, if we're going to become a multiplying church, how do we do that in the most healthy, biblical, and cooperative way possible? And that's where the Lord led us to kind of come up with this model of what we just call a family model of churches. And so what we realized is, man, church planting is really hard, right? Going back to how many fail. We're not interested in that. We want to be here for the long haul. And how can we link arms for the long haul with a heart of humility that says, man, we want to be churches that radically share resources, people, whatever it is, we want to share. And so that's where things started. And we formed the Calvary family of churches with our first church plant in 2012. We sent about 60 people out.
Oh, wow.
Which for us was about a third of our church at that point.
Wow.
Maybe a quarter of our church, but it was a chunk of our church. And we sent out our best leaders, right? And we're like, it's easy to get everybody pumped about that. And then you're like, crud, man, they all win, And now it's like, but what's so good about this is what I always tell churches, and you're going to experience this too. As you sacrifice as a church, you feel a good pain that forces you to depend on the Lord again.
That's right.
It drives you to your knees.
That's right.
And I think, man, the point where we get so comfortable that we don't have to walk by faith anymore, we're in trouble.
That's right. What I mean?
And so we sent these folks out, and praise God, it was awesome. And we were learning how to be a family together. And when we talk about a family, by the way, we can dig in deeper to this if you want, but we share a same family name. We share same family, what we call core commitments and vision and values, and even a philosophy of ministry. And yet at the same time, we are autonomous congregations. And that's really important. Yeah. I believe if you're going to be truly Baptist, church, we believe in the autonomy of the local church.
That's right.
But we believe in interdependency, not independence.
Yeah.
So interdependence is the word we use, because while we're autonomous, we need each other big time. And we need to be practicing cooperation and partnership. As Baptists, our autonomy gets us in trouble oftentimes when our attitude is, well, don't mess with me. We're going to do our own thing, and you can't change what we're doing. And that's sadly, I think, partly why we have so many churches dying in the SBC. I mean, we're closing 17 churches a week right now in the Southern Baptist community. And that should break our hearts. And I think a big reason is because of a lack of cooperation, a lack of saying, man, we're in this together. We're not trying to compete with each other. We need to help each other. So anyway, all that to say, guys, 2012, we planted our first church. By God's grace, our vision was not to plant one church, but to see by His grace a movement of churches. In the next 3 years, as we worked together, because here's what you got to remember: you not only have the strength of a sending church, but in time you also have the strength of a sending family of churches.
That's right.
So as we started planning, we're saying, well, hey, these 3 families from Calvary Englewood could go, and these 2 families from Calvary Littleton could go, and we'll get some new families over here. And so that's how we began to plant churches. And then God began to open the door for a similar thing of replanting dying churches in the same way. So we went from 1 church to 3 churches to 5 churches to 8 churches. Now we have 30 churches. Half of those are church plants. half of those are replants, but they're all part of the same family of churches where and I'm telling you, man, there's nothing better. The joy that we have together, the love that we share, there's nothing better than cooperating radically together for the sake of the kingdom and making a really big deal about Jesus.
That's right.
And not about any of us. As
Amen.
So
that's right.
That's kind of a quick overview of what God has done. And it's just a move of the Spirit. It's been very unique. And yet at the same time, I really feel like it's what God calls us to in the book of Acts. It's
for sure.
A very simple model. This is not a model that's reliant on a lot of money. What it is reliant on is a lot of prayer and a lot of humility and, quite frankly, a lot of faith to actually take some risks and trust the Lord.
That's right. So, when we were there, I came out to Denver with Craig Tuck, who I mentioned earlier, and with Jay Glasgow, who's the pastor over at Gethsemane Baptist. We came out and spent a few days, and we were at one of your monthly meetings where you gather all the pastors from the family, and you guys just encourage each other and bless each other. I mean, that was really cool. You could just kind of sense the unity in the room. They're all speaking the same language and all just, celebrating what God was doing. I mean, I remember we shared prayer requests we had as a group. We shared like what God was doing in each individual church. It was just really, really encouraging. And so you could sense these guys, they're all bought into this family of churches and doing it together. There wasn't, it didn't seem to me anyway, Mark. I mean, and I was really appreciative of you there that day. Cause I mean, I know years ago, God put this vision in your heart and you've kind of led out in this movement, but you were just another one of the pastors there that day. It wasn't like you were the big shot calling the shots on this thing, right? No, you're just another pastor here celebrating what God's doing in the family. And that was really encouraging to see your humility in that. And so obviously among the elders, the pastors, there's this sense of unity and family. But let me ask you this question. Okay, for that family that comes to Calvary Englewood, how do you guys keep them aware, if you will, that they're a part of this larger family of churches? How do you keep them connected to what God's doing across the area and not just in that individual local church?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's key because part of it is, and you guys will see this as you're leaning into it, it's one thing to have your leaders and pastors excited about it, but the big win is when the people start owning it. And so I think let me just throw out several just ways that we do it. One, from a visual standpoint, we have an entire wall dedicated to the Calvary family of churches. So when a new family comes in, one of the first things we do is we take them to the wall. And the wall has a picture of all of our churches. It has some quotes and stories of what God has done. And so part of it is we want to tell the story of where we've been and where God's taking us. And what we find is people, as soon as they hear that vision, if they're a Christian and they want to be part of a church that's serious about mission, it blows them away. They're just like, this is crazy. So we want to keep visually that before them all the time. So as far as we have weekly what we call a mission moment, and mission moment can include many things, but once a month, our mission moment is highlighting one of our churches. So we'll tell the story of what God's doing there. We may do a short video with the pastor there that we show. We'll have on the seats that day ways to pray for Calvary Littleton or whatever the church is. That's another thing. So ongoingly, we're highlighting that. We're also highlighting regularly events that we do. So again, think about this. Like at this point, when you cooperate like this, you not only have the strengths of the small church, right, which I would say are quality and biblical shepherding of God's people, deep connections, these things, but you also have the strengths of a really large church. So on one level, you could say, man, we're all autonomous churches, but there's 30 of us. So imagine all the classes, all the seminars, all the things that we do that are open to everybody else. So in other words, you can zoom in. If I'm teaching a class on theology, and we've got a little church up in the mountains, Calvary Hot Sulphur Springs, well, that pastor can't pull off that class. That they can zoom in and they're right there in the living room with us, teaching the class. So all that to say, we're always trying to do events together, whether in person or Zoom or whatever, that people can be part of. Another thing is in our membership process, we spend a good deal of time helping them understand the vision of the Calvary family, what it is, how we're involved, those kinds of things as well. And then also trips. Like we try to regularly encourage our people to go serve at another Calvary church. And so we have a guy, Jeff DeClue, who's on staff with us. One of his roles is overseeing replanting. And so he's taken teams to go serve for a weekend here or there or wherever. And so these are just some of the ways that we're trying to all the time. We, as a family of churches, every month we do a kind of a newsletter that we give to all of our churches to hand out to all of their people. So they're up to speed. We have an annual conference. So once a year, like this year, we're getting ready, and it's kind of like a family reunion. It's not just for those in the CFC. I mean, Tommy, you've been there, but it's a great chance for all of our leaders to come together each year and remember the vision and be encouraged. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do. We're always trying to grow in it, but you have to be intentional about it. Otherwise, the vision can leak, of course. And you don't want to, again, it's honoring that autonomy. We don't want to go overboard. At the same time, here's what you're going to find. When you do this well and churches and leaders feel really loved and cared for, man, they're not going to ever want to do ministry any other way. I mean,
that's good.
It's like,
that's good.
I mean, that's what we hear all the time. Like, I can't imagine what it'd be like to do ministry now on my own, apart from the family of churches. And so, and I think that really, that's, I think, the heart of what the church is to be about. And so what you guys are doing, I am so excited about. And I just know the Lord's going to do incredible things through you guys in Charleston. And he already is.
That's right. That's encouraging. That's encouraging. So we're in the process, like we said, of Gethsemane becoming Northwood Baptist Berkeley and Wando Woods becoming Northwood Baptist at Wando Woods. And so that shared identity as far as sharing the same constitution and bylaws, how we govern our church, sharing that same name. Hey, Mark, you've been at this a lot longer than we have. Tell us why that's so important.
Yeah.
And how, and also how that different, because when being in conversation with Wando Woods and Gethsemane, trying to help them understand how what we're doing by sharing the same name is different than like being just a campus of Northwood Baptist, and help us understand that.
Yep. I think, again, part of this is going back to helping our people understand that this is not a multi-site model.
No,
so a multi-site model, and I'm sure you've explained this, is really one church in multiple locations, which, again, just putting my cards on the table, I don't believe that's in keeping with Baptist polity. I think we believe in autonomous congregations that are locally led, locally contextualized, these kinds of things. And so we want to honor that. At the same time, how do we not just talk about truly depending on one another and partnering together if we don't have some skin in the game? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where Baptists have gotten in trouble. Is we'll talk a lot about we're better together, but then we really don't do anything together.
That's right. That's right.
We do very little, especially in terms of real collaboration.
That's right.
For ministry, we may give money, but this isn't just about money. This is about collaborating for the sake of the gospel to reach real lives in our communities.
That's right.
Together. And so what we felt like is there's something with a name and the sharing of a name that not only, part of it is just think about a family. Like when my wife, when we got married and she took on my name, that's a big deal. That's an identity.
It's identity. That's right, identity.
I mean, she's saying, look, man, I am now a Hallock and I'm part of the Hallock. In fact, it's interesting. If you do research on this, and I read an article not long ago, marriages where the spouse, typically it's the wife, does not change her name, which is growing in, becoming more and more common, have the highest rate of divorce when they don't change their name. Because part of it is like, well, I'll get married, but I don't want to really let go of my old life.
That's right.
And I don't want to let go of my identity. And so you're not really all in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you change your name, you're saying, look, man, I'm all in. I'm all in. I want to take on your identity. And it's not that, and it's a shared identity. That's
right.
The thing. With the family, in keeping, it's like, this isn't just about, Northwood, the big Northwood, right?
That's
you guys are starting this, but in time, you guys are all submitting to one another.
That's right.
And saying, man, we're in this together.
That's right.
Whatever the name is, it's like, who cares what the name is? It's about sharing a name.
Yeah.
That says, man, this is who we are. This is our tribe. This is what we're about. We're all in. We've got each other's backs. And it's not just like I can have one foot in and say, well, when things get hard, I'm out. There's part of saying, man, we're kind of married here, and we're going to be in for the long haul. And so I think that's one piece of it. The other piece of it, on a real positive note, is, dude, what you're going to see is people feel a sense of excitement. They want to be part of it. You know what I mean? And like, so we have a symbol, the star for the Calvary family. And it's so cool, like just driving around Denver and I'll see the star on a car somewhere,
awesome.
You know, or like in a restaurant, you know, there's a star and there's this sense of identity.
Yeah, that's my
like,
people.
Hey, you go to Calvary Church. Yeah, where do we get? And they don't know who I am, and that's totally fine with me. I don't care. Say, well, yeah, I serve actually as a pastor at Calvary Englewood. No way, that's amazing. And, you know, so there's this sense in which, man, we are on mission together to make
really
Jesus
cool.
non-ignorable. That's our tagline, in Denver to the ends of the earth. And there's something with identity that you're part of something bigger than yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That for us has been kind of like super glue, to be honest with you. We've seen other family of churches do it without changing. That's why I'll always say, it's not like you have to change your name. The problem is if you don't change your name, the families we've seen have not really stuck together very well. And I would say it's because there's a level of sacrifice involved in changing your name. And I understand that.
Yeah.
It can be hard because you've had this identity for so long and this other name. But what we got to remember, it's about the name of Jesus.
That's right.
It's not about the name of a particular church. Right. And sharing a name helps us to go all in together and link arms, and it unites us in our mission. And I think that's really important. And I'll just tell you from experience, we've seen so much fruit as a result of that, which is why I'm such a believer in it. And I think you guys, you're doing it the right way, to be honest. Like, listen, if a church is unwilling to submit to that in a family model, there's going to be other things they're not going to be on board with. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Yeah.
And what the last thing you want is to have a church that just constantly fights the family.
That's
right. It doesn't really, who's in the family but doesn't want to be in the family.
Right.
Like, we're not twisting anyone's arm here. This is a privilege. This is a joy to be part of this family of churches. And so it goes back to humility and taking on the name as part of that. And it should be something that's a joyful thing, not a point of contention.
Yeah. And you do something with the family churches, which is similar to what we do with individuals. With our individuals here at Northwood, when they become a member of our church, they sign our church covenant, right? We have covenant membership. And so every year we renew that covenant membership within our church. We re-sign our covenant every single year, just as, you know, that statement of, we're still in this thing together, right? And you guys do something like that within the family. Like every year, each church is recommitting to the family of churches.
Yep, exactly. That's right. Recommitting, because again, as Baptists, this is true for church membership, right? This is true for churches. I mean, people can do whatever they want to do.
That's right.
You know, like we're not listening. And so what we want church members who understand the importance of membership and they want to be members of the church. Right? None of us want to have church members who don't want to be a member. It's like we want members who want to be there. And the same thing with the family of churches. We want to encourage them, but we also want them to want to be part of this family. And the covenant every year is kind of a reminder for each of us what a privilege it is to be part of this, and we are all in. It also allows churches, and we could talk about this, but if there's some issue that came up, say there's a doctrinal shift or something in a church, that also allows us a chance for a church to off-ramp out of the family of churches. And they typically would self-select that because they don't align anymore with who we are. And so I think that's important to protect the family as well.
So help me think through this, Mark. So listening to this podcast today, there are a lot of people who just are part of our faith family. They're here at Northwood. I'm just telling you, and Trey would attest to this, we've got a great church, right?
We do, yes.
For a year and a half now, they've heard me talk about family of churches, and they're just seeing the vision with me. They like me, right? Like they don't have a clue. Right, we're just kind of figuring it out as we go.
Sure, right, yep.
You know, but our church, I mean, they're excited about it. Mm-hmm. People are stepping up. And when we had our joint service with Wanda Woods and Gethsemane, we packed that place out.
Yeah,
you know,
powerful.
you couldn't find a seat in the place, and people were you could just sense the excitement of God is doing something, and we're thankful to be a part of it. It was really, really cool. And so, you know, we're assembling these teams to go and serve at Wanda Woods or at Gethsemane to help these churches live again, and sending out like you have done there at Calvary, Mark. We're sending out our best people. In fact, I had a conversation with a couple Sunday morning that you know, we're praying will go and serve at Wanda Woods. So a couple that loves being here every Sunday morning. You know, and as you're saying, I was like, you know, brother, listen, we just got to send our best people, and you're one of our best. And so, you know, and so, you know, that is a challenge. That's a sacrifice on our part. As you know, I was telling him Sunday morning, it's a little bit fearful for me as a pastor because, you know, I'm losing my best, but at the same time trusting that God is going to raise up other leaders within our congregation so that Northwood here on Green Ridge Road can continue to thrive. But talk to that person who's listening, who's a part of our faith family, who sees the vision, but just loves being here at Northwood on Green Ridge Road. And the thought of taking that kind of step of faith to go to because this is a step of faith that we've talked about so often in our church. You're leaving a very healthy environment, right? A very healthy church to go into a church that is not healthy at all. Yeah. That's dying. That's a big step of faith. Tough stuff. That's a big step of faith. And so if that person who's wrestling with that kind of step of faith, could you talk to that person and help them to see why this is just so so valuable for the kingdom of God to be willing to take a step of faith like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think how I would pastor that person, I think I'd say a couple things. I would say this, and this is partly what we've learned, is there has to be a sense in which you really have a burning desire to be part of this. Like one of the mistakes I think we made early on is we kind of overpromised and underdelivered. And so we sent people who really probably shouldn't have gone. They weren't really all in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I think they were again, because they want to support their pastors. So they want to, and they want to, but the truth is, they probably shouldn't have gone. They weren't ready to go. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. This is why I say not everybody should go. In fact, it's better to have, and this is true in church planning as well. I mean, I'd rather have 25 sold out people who are all in than 50, and half of them will probably come back to the church, the home church, in
because
3
they
to
just weren't
6
ready.
months,
Yeah.
Which happens all the time, which is partly why, again, you guys may want to consider some kind of basic assessment process.
Yeah, we're working through that now. Yeah, we're working through that now.
Because again, part of this is, we want people to be where the Lord wants them to be.
Right.
And depending on their season of life, depending on a lot of factors, there are going to be those who it's best to stay with you guys,
right. That's right.
At the same time, there are a lot of folks who need to go, to be honest with you. And if the thing that is keeping us back, and this is convicting for all of us, but what's keeping us back is just comfort, well, that's not the right reason to stay.
That's right.
Because the Lord wants to grow us and mature us. And if you're a Christian and you want more of Jesus and you want to see his name made famous in Charleston, then this is an incredible opportunity to actually trust the Lord and to grow in your faith, quite frankly, in ways that you never have before, and you're walking in obedience. I mean, the Lord's very clear. I mean, the Great Commission to go and make disciples of all nations. He doesn't say stay, he says go. And that means we literally need to get up and go somewhere. We need to move. We need to be part of something that's fresh and different. And that does not mean that the Lord may not be calling you to go over to, overseas for missions. Some of us, honestly, some in your church, probably that's what God's calling them to. But there's another mission field, and it might be right there in one of the replant areas. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that you need to go. You've got gifts. Here's another thing. When you go as part of a team to a replant, there are gifts that you get to use and are tapped into that, quite frankly, may not be used on the same level at a larger church.
That's right.
In a larger church, there's more people and more people using gifts, and that's great. But what I always say is, man, if you're somebody that quite frankly, you've got gifts to give that you're not using, replanting a church, being part of that is a huge opportunity to come alive and to bless people with the gifts God's given you that you may not be able to use, otherwise. The other thing is this, remember what you're doing. I mean, by going into a declining church to love those people, to bring hope to those people, to care for the people and reach the people in that community, that is so honoring to the Lord.
Absolutely.
He is so pleased with that. It's radical in our day and age. I mean, it's radical as Christians in a day and age where we like to be comfortable. And we like to have the cool band, and we like to have, the great preacher like Tommy and all these things. You know what? When you go to a dying church, you're sacrificing a lot of that.
That's right.
And yet there's a joy in that to go, man, we want to see God God does his best work in the midst of weakness. We know that.
That's right.
He loves to show his strength in weakness. And that's true in our own lives. It's true with churches. And you get to be part of watching God show off his strength in the midst of weakness for his own glory. And that's a great joy to be part of that. So those are just some of the reasons why I would say, man, it is worth serious consideration and prayer and trusting the Lord. And it is scary. It's scary. But you know what? Sometimes we got to get out of the boat, man.
That's right.
We got to get out of the boat. Not talk about the boat, not talk about the water and be proud of all those other people who get out of the boat. Sometimes we need to do it and trust the Lord. And I think this is a chance to get out of the boat and watch what God will do. And it's exciting. It's exciting.
Hey, Mark, you've been a blessing today. Thank you so much. I know you've got a busy schedule. Thank you for taking some time to spend with us.
Oh, man, thanks for letting me share.
Man. Hey, man, I just really appreciate you. You have been very generous just in general with your time and with your resources, and you've helped us to really think through this well at Northwood, and so I'm just very thankful for your friendship and your willingness to do that. And, man, God's using you in great ways, and I'm just really thankful for how he's used you.
Thanks, brother. I love you. I love you. I love your church, and man, we're the biggest fans out there of what God's doing with you guys. So grateful we get to do it together.
Yeah, a few Sundays ago, Mark was actually joining us for a Sunday morning worship service. Came and sat in the back row with him and his wife. They came and checked us out.
It was awesome.
That's awesome.
We loved it.
You know what they talked about, Trey? Just because you're such a great guest services guy, they talked about the friendliness of our people and how they were received.
Yes.
And
we work hard at that. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
It was so warm. We loved it.
Anytime you're in Charleston, brother, you're always welcome here. That's for sure.
Amen to that. Well, Pastor, thank you so much for bringing this to us. This has been huge, I think, in the life of our church. And thank you, Mark, as well. So, Pastor, why don't you close us out and get us ready for next week?
Hey, I hope today has been a blessing to you and an encouragement to you. And if it has, we would love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can have new content delivered to your device every single week. Leave us a 5-star review. That helps us to get word out about our podcast. And as always, we hope today's episode has helped you connect faith to life.